Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the 2025 version of the film. Why am I saying that? Because there's another film with that same title that was made in the 90s. This is the most recent rendition of the films. This is a film that brings back some of the people from the original, and I'm sure there's other Easter eggs along the way. But we're going to go ahead and talk about some non-spoiler stuff for you in the beginning, give the movie a rating, and then talk about some spoilers. I
I'm
will
just gonna,
say, oh, go ahead.
this is, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna start with a side note of, I have not seen any of the previous films from this franchise before seeing this movie. And even until now, we're doing the review and stuff, I still have not seen any of the previous films to be able to compare it to any of them.
Same. That's what I was going to say too. It's just that I haven't seen any of them. I can recognize some of the actors and actresses from like the movie posters back in the day. But aside from that, I couldn't tell you much about the other films. I didn't even know the style of the film that this was. Thinking way back, you know, uh, my friends used to, exchange ghost stories, and there was always the ghost story about, these people that unexpectedly killed somebody, and then this person with a hook followed them to their home, and I always thought that was just some random scary story, but really that's what this movie series is. And when I hear about that stuff from like my friends and hearing it as a ghost story, I thought it was kind of like a supernatural type villain. I didn't know it was a whodunit type film, kind of like Scream, in a sense. But what I would say here is I thought this movie was okay. Honestly, I think it's probably below average, and definitely at least at this point with how these types of movies are being made as of late. I feel like there's tons and tons of movies that came out when I was a kid, and these companies are trying to get, a new audience to come into their stuff. Not only see the new stuff, but also, backtrack and see the other stuff. And so, some movies that have done well with that, of course, Final Destination is probably one of the most recent ones that did really well. And I know there's another one, I just can't remember it off the top. Oh, Scream. That's another big series that, has come back and has actually had multiple films in recent years. So, I don't know. I feel like with this movie, they tried to. It seemed like they had a checklist of things that would modernize the series, and they hit all those boxes. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, they're even like political, like with how today's society, a lot more apparent with like the LGBTQ group. This movie has a decent amount of that type stuff in it. So, referring to, I think one of our main characters is bisexual, and there is definitely enough film time to pick up on that. So, there's a lot of things with that. There's the modern audience, with new characters. There's also bringing in those for nostalgia with the older characters from the late 90s. And so, like I said, I think they did try to make this movie well put together and, well done, but at the same time, there's just some things in this movie that I thought were really dumb. Like, for instance, there's one of our characters that dies. I won't say who at the moment, but I'll kind of describe what I saw is that this person gets harpooned and they get, hit, and you're thinking, oh, that person's hurt, they should go run for cover, or they should, whatever. And this dude literally just stands up and stares back off into the distance where they just got shot from. And I'm just like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in one of these most recent horror films. So there's just some weird choices like that. I will say, as far as it being a whodunit type film, there were a couple of times where I was like, oh, maybe it's this person, maybe it's this person. But the bigger twist, I will say, I did pick up on before it was revealed, and we'll talk about that later. So, what did you think of the film?
I'm in agreement with you about it being below average. I was honestly fairly bored and just not really even wanting to finish the movie because, it it wasn't holding my attention enough. I didn't care about any of the this is the big hicker. I didn't care about any of the characters, like whether they lived or died. There was nothing redeemable about them. There was nothing likable about them. It wasn't just like, the rich pretty girl because she had her own thing going on. It's really kind of everybody had their own thing of being a little bit different, but at the same time not having any charisma for me to like not want them to die. And so at some point it's almost like you're rooting for the villain, like, all right, come get this one next, because I got nothing else to live for in this movie.
Yeah. It was kind of it was very actually it was very rough, I would say. I was going to say at first it's kind of rough, but no, very, very rough. Um, I don't know. I
Well,
wish it was a little bit better. The other big thing with that though is too, you know, like I said in the beginning, with them bringing out this new movie, trying to bring in new audience members. After watching this movie, I had no interest in watching the original. So that's one of those things that I feel like they should be able to pull the audience in to at least check out the ones before it, but not for me. Not for
I'm
me.
partially curious just to see like, you know, the original must have been well enough for them to want to make another one. Well, and I guess this is in a way kind of the third in the series, even though it's not chronologically, but it kind of is. I don't know. Anyway, a third installment in the series, right? This is the third movie to come out. Um, the first one must have done somewhat decent for them to not only come out with a sequel, but now a third one.
I didn't know
But
how many there was.
I think there's three. I honestly don't know for sure. But I caveat to what I'm saying here about it being below average. I don't think it's the worst film that we've seen this year, and I don't know that it's necessarily the worst film of this style of being like the whodunit kind of a thing.
No, there's
Um,
definitely a big contender for that called Founder's Day.
yeah.
I would
Um,
rather watch this movie than Founder's Day.
so yeah, I feel like I'm ready to roll right into ratings. Are you?
Yep, I can just throw it out there. I'm gonna give this movie a 3. This one's a 3 out of 10. It is below average for sure. Did it have, at least enough interest where I'm thinking, and trying to figure out who it is or what their motives would be? Yeah, but at the same time, it does not make me want to watch the other ones. So I'm gonna set it a 3.
I feel like I'm sitting at a very low four. It's definitely not a five. Kind of contemplated giving it a three, but I feel like I'm at a four. It was not keeping my attention a whole lot, but there were enough elements that like I wasn't in agony of boredom, I guess is the way to put it. Um,
You asked me and your mother like 35 minutes into the film if we were bored, and that's usually can we go because we're at the drive-in.
yes. Yep, I did. I was ready to go at that point, but I stuck it out because we were all trying to finish the movie, and
Also,
I
it's
I
an
don't know.
hour away. We ain't gonna drive home after 35 minutes, and I had 3 hot dogs. I'm gonna get my movie in there too.
Yeah. It I don't know. I feel like it's definitely below average, but I feel like there's so many other films that are worse yet that a four is where I feel comfortable leaving this one at.
All right. 3 and a 4, definitely not good, no matter who you talk to. So, um, all right, we'll start talking about some spoilers here. Okay, so the premise of the movie, you can probably guess it. It's just like all the other ones. Something happens on one of the nights where a bunch of teenagers slash, I think they were approaching college age. Maybe I don't remember their exact ages.
Something like that.
I thought they were in high school, but anyways,
Well, the one's engaged, so I think they're like fresh out of high school.
all right. So, oh yeah, it was an
And
engagement party that
and
started that.
they're drinking, right?
I don't know.
Drinking slash smoking.
I thought there was a scene where they were in high school, but I don't know. It's whatever. Not important. So they do something. They're at an engagement party. This is where we kind of meet all of our characters. And then eventually, what happens is that they pull over on the side of the road, and they're all trying. There's a couple of guys doing some stupid things where they're playing chicken, basically, with other drivers, and one of them, goes to dodge one of the boys and uh, crashes through the rail and then goes down uh, a little bit off the mountain. And the people, our main characters, go down there to try to help him out. Like they're trying to hold the car, try to pull the guy out because they notice the dude is still alive from the initial fall, and then they just can't hold the vehicle, and the vehicle goes, and they're like, dang, that person must be dead or needs serious help. And so, to kind of cope with that, they decide that they will call the cops. The cops will go there, but then they'll leave. They're not gonna, talk to the police or anything. Um,
Well, they don't want to get in trouble for like manslaughter or something for having caused the accident.
right. So that sets up our main event that, causes the ripple effect for the rest of the film. Because then it says like 1 year later, of course, this is all in the summertime. And actually, isn't our main the one character that was engaged in the first place? Now she's engaged to somebody else.
Yep. Yep, her original fiance, I think, was the one who kind of was the main cause of the accident, and she must have just, eventually caught on to the fact that he's a really stupid guy and she shouldn't be with him. And so now she's engaged a year later, not only with somebody else, but engaged to somebody else.
Yeah, that girl moved quick. That's for sure. And it's not like she's, super old and running out of time. It's just that it was a quick turn. Wasn't it just another? No, it wasn't just another person in the friend group because that guy wasn't in the beginning, was he?
It was somebody who did not know about the accident.
Right,
And one of our group members, their dad works at the police station and was able to like pay off whoever they needed to pay off to have the kids not be tied to this accident at all.
right. And so during this engagement party, she's opening up some gifts, and she gets handed a card, and in the card it says, "I know what you did last summer." And she's like, "What the heck?" We all basically swore to not tell anybody about this. Who's playing these games? So, our characters eventually know that something's up. Um, just trying to think of how much that we should just really dive into because really the rest of the film is, the characters think they know what's going on, and then, us as the audience we're led to believe it's so and so, but it's not, and then they just kind of do that two or three times, and then we eventually get to the pinnacle of the movie. So
Yeah. The deaths are in a variety of different ways, one of them being the harpoon gun.
that was the one that I thought was super dumb. So the it's the fiance, right?
Yep. The
So
one who was not part of the original accident
correct. So let's get some names out here. So the girl, her name,
is Danica.
I thought Danica was the bisexual girl.
That's Ava, isn't it?
Oh, maybe you're right.
I think Danica's the blonde.
Okay, so Danica, she's upstairs, she's taking a bath, and her fiance is downstairs, and he thinks he sees something off in the distance because the lights turn on in the backyard. And so
Mhm.
he goes up to the window because it's like a see-through glass wall, whatever you want to call it. Thinks he sees something, then all of a sudden he gets harpooned in the gut. And so then, he falls to the floor, and the harpoon, I think, is retracted, like pulled out of him, wasn't it? So
Yeah,
then,
he escapes the harpoon the first time somehow, like it goes back through him and he's able to like the hooks must not have hooked far out enough and like it hurts him but not like badly enough that he's down for the count.
right. And so then he gets up and he just stares at the window again. And I'm just like, boy, you just got shot. Why aren't you running upstairs to at least get away from this person. But number two, that way you can tell your fiance that something's up, get out of that bathtub, whatever you need to do. But instead, he just stares out that window again until he gets popped one more time and then he gets killed. So,
Something I forgot to mention in the non-spoilers that I wanted to note about this movie is it's rated R, but it very much feels like a PG-13 movie. And I know you said there's a handful of swearing and whatnot in here and like blood and things that would make it not PG-13, but I'm talking about like the vibe of the movie and the whodunit type vibe and I just it doesn't feel sophisticated enough to be something more than just like a PG-13 film. And maybe it's because the characters are all so young and stupid and don't know what they're doing, and that kind of plays into it too. But there's tons of other movies. The first one that comes to mind is like Friday the 13th. That's a lot of young 20 somethings trying to fight for their lives, but they don't feel nearly as stupid as these kids. I I don't know.
yeah, I would agree. We get another death, not too far after this. The character's name is Tyler, and she is someone that no, not Danica, that Ava met at the airport, I believe, when she was flying home, and they were supposed to probably be like a one-timer making out in the bathroom kind of a thing. But because Danica was getting an Uber or a ride back to town, Tyler asked to get a ride as well because Tyler is a podcaster that talks about all these crazy murderers and whatnot. And so she's basically revisiting the area of, the killings from years ago. And she actually accompanies Ava to, I don't, some old building. And, the killer shows up and slaughters uh, Tyler, like cuts up Tyler and then hangs her. And she ends up dying via hanged. Uh, Also, so how I
Those are
said
the
that,
two deaths that I really remember was the fiance and Tyler's.
yeah. So then there's, like I said, Ava. Bisexual character. How do we know that? Because not too long after this is when she decides to hook up with another guy, with a guy. I think I don't think it was a hotel room. I don't know.
Well, that's Milo, which is actually her ex-boyfriend, and is the guy who gave her a ride home from the airport. So like super awkward. My ex-boyfriend is giving me and the girl that I just hooked up with a ride home from the airport.
Right. And so, he hooks up with Ava here, and then he goes out to his car, and then he gets murdered in his car. So some may say he went out with a bang. But then our next one, we got Teddy, which is Danica's ex-fiance. Let's see.
Is he the
Wasn't
one that
this?
is he the one that there was two deaths right next to each other out on the pier that were hung up like fish caught fresh for the day?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know who the two were, that I just remember seeing the two people and I'm like, I don't know who this is, but cool.
The two were Teddy and Grant Spencer. So Teddy was Danica's ex-fiance, or one of them, I suppose. Um, and Grant is his dad.
Ah, okay.
They were attacked at their mansion.
Which I think Grant was the one who like falsified the police reports so that the kids wouldn't be tied to the death at all.
Right. So what we're kind of piecing together here along the way is that somebody, of course, is upset about the person that was killed and left behind in the beginning, and all the people that were associated with it. Not only the kids, but also the people that tried to cover it up. They're also getting hacked one by one. After that, at this point, I kind of thought it was the pastor character. So they go to the church and they think the pastor is up to something, and they send one of them into like his private office to look at some books. to see if they can get any information on him, and another person is distracting the pastor while they do it.
I think part of the issue too that led them to the pastor is that the truck that went through the guardrail that was part of the crash was registered in his name.
Gotcha.
Even though he wasn't the driver, it was his truck.
Makes sense. Uh, so that kind of made me think, well, maybe this guy might be involved in some way, shape, or form. Pastors have their own reasons for being upset with people, I suppose, different sinning and whatnot. And before we know it, he's killed too. So not him. And there's a couple of things going on here throughout the film where I'm like, this is where I was starting to piece things together before we got to the actual reveal. I was like, something's going on here. One, whoever's behind this has to be strong enough to go up against a dude that is jacked because I think it was against Milo. Yeah, Milo was like fighting for his life and resisting against this person fighting, and um, the dude was super strong, and like they were holding, Milo was holding his own. So whoever was fighting Milo had to have been strong. And then there's other cases here where, of course, you don't have to be as strong. I'm trying to remember what were the other things that indicated it was a different person. Oh, just it seemed kind of weird that there'd be characters that would leave for a second and then all of a sudden the killer would be there. And so it's like, oh, maybe it's this person. Or maybe the killer was there and then somebody showed up and you're just like, that's really weird. Um, so it kind of made me think that multiple people were involved, which once we get towards the end of the movie here, we find out that there actually is multiple people. And what's happening is in the beginning of the film, when we're learning about all these different characters, one of the characters, let's see, what was her name?
Stevie.
Stevie. She, I guess do you remember what happened? And she was kind of like correcting her life.
So, uh, back before this movie takes place, they were all okay, so they are college kids, and here's why is they were getting ready to like graduate from high school. Something happened with Stevie's dad where like they lost all their money or something, and I think he gambled away her college tuition or something along those lines that prevented her from going to college, whereas all the rest of the friend group went to college without her, and she had to stay back in the hometown, recoup funds, take care of her dad or whoever, and just was basically stuck working like like a retail job, except I think she works at like a hotel or something. Um, and so all of her friends essentially abandoned her, the rest of the friend group, right? So they reconnect at Danica's first engagement party. Yes, you heard that right. First engagement party. But that's so she's part of that accident when the accident happens, and then a year later, I don't remember if she's at the second engagement party or not, 'cause she wasn't originally at the first one. They just saw that she was working and invited her to go for a drive and
Pretty sure she was at the
be
second one.
be a part of that. I would assume so because the card probably came from her, versus her accomplice, but
Right. And what else is going on with her is that one of our characters from the original, what was his name? Ray, played by Freddie Prinze Jr. Um, Ray was taking care of Stevie, watching out for her. I don't remember if it was her dad that, he said, "Oh, I'll watch over her for you," blah blah blah. But um, they end up being the two that are the ones doing bad things and killing people.
yeah. And it wasn't just that her friends abandoned her and she was upset over that. It was that the person driving the truck that went over the guardrail that they chose not to help and never filled out a police report or anything. That was like her boyfriend, but she didn't know it at the time that he was the one driving because she never got to see who was the driver. But when she found out after the fact, and the friends never took her to the police station to make a report or anything, and so it's almost like she participated in killing her boyfriend, who was like the one saving grace when all her friends abandoned her. This was her one shining light, and now he's gone, and it's all their fault, and they didn't even bother to try to help him. So that's why she's got a major beef with all of them.
Which I kind of find it hard to believe that um the group wouldn't have picked up. If it was one of her former boyfriends, one of the guys, I don't remember who, but one of the guys tries to help the driver get out of the vehicle before the vehicle goes over the cliff, basically. And the driver like punches through the window. So I feel like they would have recognized who it was, but maybe at the same time they were just trying to keep quiet.
Well, it's her current boyfriend that nobody in the friend group knows that she's dating because they haven't seen her in a long time.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
And the guy who's driving isn't the one who owned the truck. So when they looked at who was the truck was registered to, it didn't say that person's name either.
Right.
But I think it was somebody from the original films that saw once they found out who the driver was, they saw a picture of Stevie with that guy, and so that's why they kind of pieced together. And I want to say it was Julie, which is Jennifer Love Hewitt's character. She saw like a family photo or something with Ray in it, and that's how she got clued in of like it's not just Stevie, it's also this guy, and I need to go help these girls.
Yeah. Part of that too is there was this towards the end of the movie when we find out who the two characters are. It starts off with just Stevie and she's doing her monologue and with Danica and Ray comes out and isn't he the one that shoots her?
Yep.
'Cause she falls off a boat and then us as the audience and Danica and all them feel like everybody is safe. Turns out they're not because there's this guy as well, Ray being that guy. And then, of course, they eventually take care of him too.
Which
Um,
I think the only surviving member of our friend group is Ava.
oh, it's just Ava? I thought
I
there were
th
two of
I
them on
th
the boat.
um Oh, you're right. Okay. So it was Ava and Danica and Stevie. Danica went overboard, but wound up somehow miraculously surviving. We see her like cough herself awake and like spewing water on shore. Somehow she like gave herself CPR. I don't know. So she's like miraculously alive. It's movie magic. Um
Somehow the Emperor has returned.
And Stevie, who also went overboard after being shot, we hear at the very end of the film that she is also like at large, I think is what they say. So somehow she made it out of there after being shot and going overboard and probably being ran over by the boat, which doesn't even make sense how you could survive all of that. But somehow she did because we're alluding to the fact that she's still around somewhere. So we've got Danica and Ava, who are the really good friends who are still alive, and Stevie is somewhere, nowhere to be found.
Right. And then we have a after credit scene between uh, two of our legacy characters. Um, one being Julie, which is Jennifer Love Hewitt's character, and then there was one other one.
I think is it Jill Spencer?
I think so. Simone Annan's character. And my assumption is that there's more rooted into this just because we haven't seen the past movies, but they basically get together and they're like, time to get to work, kind of a thing. And then it kind of alludes to another sequel in development. I don't know if this movie is going to make enough money where they really constitute doing that, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. From what I saw when we were watching the when the credits were rolling and I was Googling to try to see if there was a post-credit scene to watch or not, so we knew if it was time to go or not, because being at the drive-in, it's not like they turn on the lights immediately when the movie's done, so you kind of have to figure it out yourself. But it was an end credit scene that like somehow pays homage to the original film, but then alludes to a potential sequel also. So, if you know the original films, maybe it'll be a little extra special for you.
Yeah, not for me. Let's see. So I think that about summarizes the entire movie pretty good. Like I said, the I feel like they kind of had a checklist of things that they want to make sure they hit. And of course they hit them all, but they just didn't make the portrayal of the film that well. It was more or less, did you see this thing on screen? Yep. Okay. Next thing, check the box. As opposed to trying to just be more clever with it or more unique or different. And through all of that, unless you're really there for the legacy characters, I don't really see this being a thing. Or maybe if you're a fan of the series, maybe you'll enjoy this more than we did. Um, I just think within that genre of who done it, it's kind of one I think that will definitely be forgotten. All right. Anything else for I Know What You Did Last Summer?
No, I think that wraps it up well enough.
All right, sounds good. So that was our talk on I Know What You Did Last Summer, the 2025 version. Again, we say that because it's the exact title of the original. Um, but if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you liked the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.